is the following. Did Marx not ignore technological advancement and technological progress, and does it not amount to ignoring something very material in capitalist societies, right? Did I?
The economic progress.
Economic progress. So, the answer is, in this case, let me be very brief. Marx actually, celebrated, the technological abilities or technological capabilities of capitalism more than what people think. If you read Kapital, there are long accounts of how Marx thinks, technology is much more dynamic in a capitalist society than in any prior form of economic organization. What Marx did is he was also critical, right? What he said is, despite this technological progress, which produces more and more commodities, that's what he, that's the account right through Das Kapital. What does it do to human beings? What does it do to workers? Right? It alienates workers. It makes them mere appendages to machines. It de-skills them. Right? It creates unfreedom. Right? Yet critiques. It also impoverishes workers. People who actually produce all this wealth become poor. Whereas people who don't produce, the non-producers, the exploiters, become wealthy. That's the argument he's making. He's not saying that there's no technology. In fact, he celebrates capitalism for it. He says, in fact, use this productive potential, right, to produce goods, but get rid of the injustice, get rid of instability of the system. When you move towards socialism, Marx was not a Luddite, right? Marx was not anti-technology. Some people are very critical of Marx for that reason. Right? Did he have an adequate critique of, these highly productive kinds of technological processes? So that's a different kind of critique. But what you said is something that you cannot accuse Marx of doing. He did believe that capitalism was very, very dynamic, and it really increased the material wealth. He focused a lot on the alienation aspects, and he also focused a lot on the impoverishment, right, that all this increased productivity creates, which is absurd. What Marx is saying is, we are producing more and more. Why are people being deprived? Does it make any sense? It's an irrational, among other things, it's an irrational society, right? Why should, what's his name, Mukesh Ambani have some 6 or 7 parking floors in that building he constructed in Bombay, which he didn't inhabit for a while, until he had to perform all those rites to neutralize some, astrological, projection. He seems to have moved in. I was hoping that he'll never move in and they'll raise it to the ground, because it's a bit of a monstrosity in the Bombay landscape. But why should he have 6 parking floors, and why should there be homeless people? It's one goddamn family. There are 3 or 4 of them, right? Why do you need 6 parking floors? So, you had a question.
Yes, in the context of commodity fetishism, you talked about the social relation among the commodities. What is it exactly, and what about the economic relations among these?
What about the economic relations?
Yes.
So when he says social relations, what he's saying is that commodities relate among themselves, right? In the larger society, let's say you have, in the larger economy, let's say you have, thousands of commodities. It would appear as if the commodities have interrelations among themselves, the way people have interrelations, right? But what Marx is saying is the interrelations among people are guided by the material possessions they have, right? This man is wealthy, the riches that this man has or this woman has, guides what kind of social interactions this man or woman, will have, right? Whereas the commodities seem to have some kind of a social relations among themselves, right? They relate to one another, one iPhone is equivalent to some, X number of, Samsung phones or whatever. There is a particular kind of social relation that think of the world of commodities as engaged in a dance which is completely separated from the realm of production or the realm of exploitation or the realm of anything else, right? So it would seem that, they have an independent and autonomous sphere in which they operate. And Marx is saying that is the problem. When he says social, it means, they are socially connected. All the commodities are connected, right? And they seem to be connected through some inherent properties of labor. And what Marx is saying, the only inherent property that connects them is labor. Right? That's something that you miss out. Right? So people also use fetishism to understand something like, you wear Nike, right? Shoes. People wear Nike shoes, not whoever wears Nike shoes. Just do it. It's nice, and you have, the goddess of victory, Nike being used for as a brand name, etc. But where are those shoes produced? If you ask that question, they're produced in sweatshops in Malaysia or Thailand or some developing country under extremely oppressive conditions of work. So when you look at just do it and you feel that excitement, right? You are healthy, you are the most attractive person in the world because you wear Nike shoes. Of course, all that is not true. You miss out the fact that it's being produced under extremely oppressive conditions of work. Right? People use that in that sense also. So it would seem like the "just do it" slogan of Nike has independent. The shoe has some magical properties through which it relates with other commodities. Right? And when you with your commodity, you possess a commodity called money. So it would seem like I have money and money can relate to just do it. Right? But where is the logic of production? Where are the social relations in this story? Right? The real social relations. Yeah.
Sir, as a this example of shoes, I want to just understand, let's say Facebook or WhatsApp. Because let's agree to the point that it's not so exploitative as it comes to the industrial exploitation point of view. It's just based on service, right? Do you think it is possible for a capitalist society without exploiting labor or not having injustice around?
So there are workplace conditions, right? And there is exploitation. These are two separate things, right? And there are physical products that are produced in factories, tangible physical products, and there are services. But both are commodities. So the logic of exploitation applies both to the tangible physical goods as well as services, right? So what Marx actually shows in volume 3 of Capital, which I didn't talk about, is there are productive workers, right, who produce surplus, and there are unproductive spheres. When surplus is produced, people take some portions of the surplus. So money lenders take one portion, merchants take one portion, or state takes one portion as taxes, right? Or managers take some portion as executive compensation. Landlords take one portion as rent, right? So these are all groups that exist. He calls them unproductive class. He is not the originator of that term. Adam Smith starts that. He calls them unproductive classes. So other than unproductive classes, so for instance a bank, right? A bank is not exploitative because it actually takes surplus from exploitative places. The conditions of work in a bank may be similar to conditions of work in a productive place. But in the Marxian scheme, what Marx is arguing is, a bank is a recipient of surplus value. Surplus value is produced elsewhere and is obtained by the bank. But bank conditions of work may be oppressive, but that's a different point. Right? So, but services, for instance, you can have service like education. See, University of Hyderabad is not exploitative, and the teachers who work here are not exploited workers because they are also, the state is a recipient of surplus value produced elsewhere. So, University of Hyderabad gets funds from the state. So, it's outside the domain of exploitation. But if you go to a private university, right, a private university or where private education is provided, education becomes a commodity then, right? When you have education as a commodity, people who work in producing that commodity, which is a service in this case, are also exploited. Right? So there is no confinement of exploitation to only tangible physical goods. You also have services. And conditions of, oppressive conditions of work are very different from, that logic is very different from the logic of exploitation. You can have very nice conditions of work, right? Look at IT firms. They say you can take a nap until, Uber kicked out its own CEO because he was taking naps in places where women were supposed to use the rooms for as feeding rooms. When they had kids, the CEO went and used that room to nap. So they kicked, that's one of the many reasons why he was kicked out. But there could be nicer conditions of work. You could play ping pong whenever you want. You can come back and work. You can take a nap, come back. You can work from home, right? So you could say these are nicer conditions of work. That doesn't make that work less exploited, right? So IT workers are among, although they are very well paid among all the workers in India today, they are highly exploited. If you look at some of the calculations, but you can also have